Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where when it comes to studio titans fighting it out at the box office, we finally have a clear winner. And it's Warner Brothers! It's so nice to see somebody else win for once. But Disney's coming up fast from behind with their own day-and-date play. They let Warner Brothers take all the flack for coming up with it and initiating it. And then here comes Disney. And I think that they will also be as successful as Warner Brothers has been. Perhaps even more so. We will see. But for now, Warner Brothers is the clear winner. And here's how they did it. And I think they should get the credit. If you're going to give them the flack, you should also give them the credit for forging this path. So first, because Nolan forced them to do it, they released the first pandemic blockbuster, which took in $363 million worldwide. And then, thanks to their aggressive HBO Max day-and-date play, Warner Brothers has been able to consistently release films throughout 2021 so far, while other studios have pushed their movies or sold them off to other purely streaming services like Netflix or Amazon or Apple. Now, this resulted in a steady flow of cash at the box office for Warner Brothers and a steady flow of HBO Max subscribers online. Sure, things started out small and everyone felt Warner Brothers had made a mistake, but they've been building very slowly but surely, and now Warner Brothers has momentum. It's all starting to come together. Godzilla vs. Kong has delivered the biggest pandemic opening weekend yet, with 32.2 for the 3-day and 48.5 for the 5-day, and a global haul of $285 million since March 24th. Remember, Godzilla vs. Kong opened overseas in a couple of countries a week ago. So that means that in 2 weekends, it's pretty close to Tenet's entire run in theaters, which is impressive. And HBO Max is queued up to do this all year long with their day-and-date plays. And they're getting bigger and bigger movies. Because, of course they started the year with small films. And, Wonder Woman 1984 and Tenet were both very flawed films, which kind of blew up in Warner Brothers' faces. So when they get these bigger crowd pleasers, I think they're going to see more and more success. They have some great movies lined up in the next couple of months. And they moved Mortal Kombat. Some people say it's to give Godzilla vs. Kong a little more space, but I agree with some of you who theorize that it's to make sure that if you subscribe for the Snyder Cut, you don't get 3 blockbusters in the one month span of your subscription. You have to resubscribe for Mortal Kombat. That makes a lot of sense to me. And speaking of online, since the movie opened on Wednesday here in the United States, HBO Max has been the #1 downloaded app on iTunes every day. It did very well for the Snyder Cut 2 as an app, but I don't think it was every day like Godzilla vs. Kong has been. Now, AT&T's next Investor Day will be April 22nd and expect to see a huge growth in subscribers. The last number they reported was 17.2 million. Remember, they're kind of silly with their numbers. They're like, these are how many people could have HBO Max if they activated it, but here's how many people actually use it. So that's the number that you want. And it's 17.2 as of late January after Wonder Woman 1984's debut. So I'll be curious to see how much higher it is. And yes, sure enough, by waiting to report their subscriber numbers until April 22nd, AT&T will make it impossible to tell how many people subscribed for the Snyder Cut specifically. And speaking of being uncool, a number of people in the trades and in the industry, basically people who are financially motivated to prioritize theatrical over streaming, are now saying, it's the old give a mouse a cookie thing. People like to say that about Snyder Cut fans, but everybody does it. So the people in the industry are like, I was very frustrated to see this today, as you can see. I even tweeted about it earlier because I was so annoyed. All right, so anyway, they are saying, imagine how much money Godzilla vs. Kong would have made had it not been available simultaneously on HBO Max. You want to play that game? Okay, let's play. I'll tell you how much it would have made. So sure, 2014's Godzilla opened with $93.1 million, but Kong Skull Island opened with just $61 million, and Godzilla King of Monsters opened with just $47.7 million. As you can see, that's quite the downward trend. Sure, I think the marquee appeal of Godzilla vs. Kong would have stopped that downward slide and maybe even gone up a little bit. But you'd probably be looking at a number not that much bigger with a non-pandemic release. Not to mention, all the goodwill that Godzilla vs. Kong is getting is due to it being the movie that's going to save the industry from the pandemic. Other studios even promoted this movie. Universal was like, woo, Godzilla vs. Kong, go to the movies so you can go see our movie. And then also, I think the media, critics, and even audiences were much kinder to Godzilla vs. Kong than they would have been outside of the pandemic. I think you would have had a movie that performed maybe a touch, I think it would have performed somewhere in between Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of Monsters, quite frankly. So we're not talking about something that would have been a huge hit otherwise. I mean, this is just, it's a pandemic special. And also, a friend of mine pointed out that, remember, Warner Brothers gave much sweeter, back-end deals to the talent involved because they agreed to the day and date release. So people are making a lot of money off of Godzilla vs. Kong, which I'm sure also makes everybody feel a lot nicer about it. Now, let's also look at the top locations in the United States for Godzilla vs. Kong. As you can see, it's largely Texas and Florida, with just a sprinkling of California. States that are, and this includes parts of California, these are parts of the country that are aggressively trying to reopen and with large populations that want to reopen. I'm trying to be really fair about it, and that's how I'm describing those groups. Usually, this list of top theaters would be New York City, New Jersey, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, which goes to show that moviegoing habits are not back to normal because of, it's very rare to see Texas and Florida dominate like this. And those, of course, are the states that are leading the charge. In fact, Texas fully opened up, and Florida just made it illegal for anyone to have to prove they've been vaccinated to go into a business. We'll see if that law stands. Because, concerts are trying to come back and sporting events, and the idea would be you'd have to prove you were vaccinated. And Florida just made that illegal. Furthermore, there are social distancing rules that in effect at movie theaters, and capacity is capped quite low. And many theaters sold out for Godzilla vs. Kong across the country, meaning that more people couldn't even see Godzilla vs. Kong if they wanted to, so why not let them see it at home? Finally, coronavirus is raging in Florida, Michigan, New Jersey, and New York City. We are not turning a corner. These are variants that are causing these problems in those states, and they are more contagious and more dangerous. And more younger people are being hospitalized in these states. The media sometimes will stop covering something because you're not clicking on it anymore. They're like, oh, people don't want to hear about this anymore. That's what happens when you have a media that's reliant on clicks. That they're telling you the truth. The news isn't their number one priority. It's running a successful business. So a lot of times, the news tells you what you want to hear, which is why we have networks that have sprung up that are opinion, perspective-based, rather than just telling you the news, like Walter Cronkite used to do, God damn it. And like I try to do that. But so it's very frustrating to me that this is a big problem, and the news just isn't pushing it anymore because they're like, oh, people don't want to hear about this anymore. And you're like, but it's happening and people should know. But I just told you, so now you know. And don't even get me started on Europe, where they're going into new lockdowns and theaters aren't open at all. Almost all of Godzilla vs. Kong's overseas cash comes from China, and I think also other Asian countries. So don't get greedy, Hollywood. You've got a great system here where people are allowed to choose where they would like to see a movie, in theaters or on streaming. And I think that once the majority of the population is vaccinated, if the majority of the population gets vaccinated, that's a big if at this point, we'll see what happens. They had a great sketch about this on Saturday Night Live last night. Oh, I love Daniel Kaluuya so much. Then once we have we can start to reach a herd immunity, then we can reevaluate. And let's see if people, I think other states will allow people to have to prove vaccination to go into places, and we'll see if they benefit from that. I mean, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Now back to studios, so that's how I feel about it. I'm very curious how you feel about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Now back to studios during again, I think, and I want to stress this, I like the choice. I'm not saying you have to stay home to watch a movie, but I'm not saying you have to go out either. I think the choice is really great. And, that way, Warner Brothers gets all the money. Who doesn't love that plan, for Pete's sake? I'll tell you, the people who don't get to see part of the streaming money, and those are the ones who are complaining about it. All right, now back to the studios during the pandemic. I would put Universal right after Warner Brothers thanks to their sweet 17-day window, although I wish they too could release day and date. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do about Fast 9, although that's been pushed to late June, so we could be in pretty good shape by then. And then Disney is right after that as they get up and running with their own day and date plans. Speaking of momentum, Raya is actually doing quite well. It's only up to 85 million globally at the box office, but it was in the top 10 on Disney Plus for its entire 30-day exclusive run. And this weekend it became available for digital purchase, and it is dominating. The numbers must be pretty good after all, which makes sense considering that Cruella and Black Widow will now be using the same release model. Speaking of the release model, does this mean you will be able to own Cruella and Black Widow on digital just 30 days after release? That'll be very interesting. Let's see what happens. And also, when it comes to things not being totally back to normal, despite its strong debut last weekend, Nobody fell 59% in its second weekend. Now, of course, Godzilla vs. Kong muscled its way in there, but that's still a huge, huge drop for a very good movie. But nobody can blame streaming here because Nobody doesn't hit digital until April 16th because of that 17-day window. But maybe streaming is to be blamed. Maybe audiences know that it's right around the corner if they didn't see it opening weekend. Have you not seen Nobody yet? What are you waiting for? I'm curious. Well, take a look at Godzilla vs. Kong second weekend drop on the next movie math and try to figure out there what's going on with long plays during the pandemic. Because we're starting to get a picture for opening weekends, but the long plays don't seem to be there just yet. Now, before we get to our top 10 charts on streaming, a word from Discovery Plus. And today's movie math is brought to you by Discovery Plus, where all your guilty pleasures are available on one streaming service, with new and original content every week. Have you tried Design Star Next Gen? 8 designers and renovators enter the Design Hub, a custom village where they face a gauntlet of challenges. Allison Holker Boss hosts, and famous designers Jonathan Adler and Lauren Mack are joined by celebrity guests to determine who will win $50,000 and their own show. And remember Murder Hornets? Well, how'd you like to be grossed out for an hour and a half with the original documentary Attack of the Murder Hornets? Watch a team of scientists and local beekeepers band together to protect a small Washington community from this dangerous, invasive species. Can they save the bees? And then speaking of murder and headlines, there's If I Can't Have You, the Jodi Arias story. This documentary features exclusive access as it goes behind the scenes to discover who Jodi Arias and her victim Travis Alexander really were. All these shows and more are available on Discovery Plus, and you can tune in today via the link down below. It's $4.99 a month with ads and $6.99 a month without ads. And you can try it for free for 7 days. Thanks again to Discovery Plus for sponsoring this episode of Movie Math. Darn it! WandaVision, even with its final episode and just one less episode than Ginny and Georgia, still couldn't nab the top spot. Not once during its entire run. That's frustrating. And still, the rest of the list is Netflix. But soon we'll be getting to Falcon and Winter Soldier. Again, Nielsen's a couple of weeks behind. And maybe if people are still watching WandaVision, Disney Plus can get 2 shows on here. I mean, I don't know. Maybe also when The Boys comes back, I'd like to see a little more variety in this top 10 list of original streaming shows. But over on movies, we have some variety. And look at this. Coming to America is number 1. It beat out Raya. That only got to number 4. I think this is, again, a case of free with subscription versus at an extra cost. HBO Max, why aren't you in here? You could be doing so well here. It's weird to me that HBO Max isn't in here. But anyway, as for Coming to America, this is a huge win for Amazon and shows it was worth the $125 million that they spent to acquire that film. And congratulations to Eddie Murphy. That's just phenomenal. Borat never even got to number 1, also from Amazon, which they spent like $110 million on. Well, they got a lot of money over there too. But yeah. There's a lot of money in digital, which is why the studios are not complaining about their digital plays. Again, only the people who don't see some of that cash. Anyway, so that's great. Also, look at I Care a Lot. It's still up there. A heck of a lot of people are watching that movie, and I don't blame them. It's incredibly well made. It's super annoying. Boy, it's annoying. But I can't deny that it's an incredibly well-made movie. And for most of it, entertaining until I'd say the third act, where it gets so annoying. But you get that Golden Globe, Rosamund Pike. I hope this gets her more work. She's really talented. Then on Netflix this week, I am thrilled, speaking of people who I want to do well, Idris Elba. I am thrilled that Concrete Cowboy has found an audience. It's a small but powerful movie. See my review, which went up late Thursday. I'll put a link down below. And I was worried it would slip through the cracks, but it hasn't. Yay! If you watched Concrete Cowboy this weekend, thank you for doing that. Bad Trip also continues to be a big hit for Netflix, which was another pandemic acquisition. And on iTunes, again, Raya dominating at #1. And look at that, right behind it, Wonder Woman 1984, because now it's available to rent for just $6. Chaos Walking from Lionsgate is also now available for a $20 48-hour rental 1 month after it hit theaters. And it's doing well, as I predicted, because it's a solid film. And as I said, I think it would make for a particularly solid, I would even say a really good stream. I liked that film. I thought it wasn't a great movie, but I thought it was watchable. What a way to describe a movie. But you know what I'm talking about. I think it'll probably do even better after Easter weekend, which is taking up a lot of spaces in the top 10, as you can see. And as it should. What are you watching for Easter tonight? I've seen a lot of these movies before. I mean, that's the way it is with holiday movies. But I also don't feel like a 3-hour plus commitment tonight. I did that last year with the 10 Commandments. So I'm thinking of going with Zootopia because, hey, it's got a bunny in it. So again, what are you planning to watch for the holiday this evening if you're celebrating? And happy Easter! As for this coming weekend, we've got another Hunger Games Divergent wannabe like Chaos Walking, also from Lionsgate, by the way. And this is Voyagers, which is hitting theaters exclusively. And that's Johnny Depp's daughter on the poster there. It's got a pretty good cast, actually. We'll see if Colin Farrell is box office poison even during the pandemic. I love Colin Farrell. He's so great. I think the Batman should be okay because he's unrecognizable there. It's crazy, this trend of like making actors look nothing like themselves. It's like Jared Leto in the upcoming Gucci Murder movie with Lady Gaga. It's like, it's crazy. Well, I'm curious to see if there's a payoff for it, because you're like, why don't you just hire an actor who looks like that? Anyway, Netflix's movie of the week is Thunder Force. Oh, I am very curious to see how that's received. Screeners for that are going out, I believe they told me Monday, so we'll see when the review embargo is. And Them drops its entire season on Amazon on Friday. I never even heard of the show until I was seeing what was debuting this week. And I gotta say, it looks pretty good. This is a Lovecraft Get Out style show from Lena Waithe, and it's about a black family that moves into an all-white neighborhood in the 1950s, and the all-white neighborhood in question? Compton. I think that's fascinating. And they didn't do a good enough push with that, I think, in the trailer that I watched, because I was like, what is this show? I think the Compton angle is fascinating. But it's not just a historical show. There's like a horror element to it, too. I don't even know if it needs it, because, I mean, the situation on its own seems pretty terrifying to me and worth exploring. I don't know if it needs that horror twist, but it looks like it has a really good cast, too. So it might be worth checking out. So what have you been, also on Friday, it's getting very competitive there with Falcon and Winter Soldier debuts, of course, on Friday, and now Invincible, which is so good. I'm not only watching Invincible every Friday, but I'm also working my way through the comic at the same time. And I'm going through that comic really fast. I don't know if it's still on, but Comixology had a sale for 50% off for like these huge volumes. Like they're $50 each, so you get them for $25 each. But I got the whole run of Invincible, and I'm racing through it. And it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of the show either. I was worried that it might, but it's not at all. And I'm having a great time. I love the Invincible world. It's fantastic. I wish more people were in it with me. Why is nobody watching Invincible? Why? If you're not watching Invincible, why aren't you? I couldn't be saying enough good stuff about it. Why aren't you trying it? And I know a number of you are really enjoying it. All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.